That dream became a reality when Earth received its first message from an alien civilization. It wasn't just one species reaching out, it was many. These aliens called themselves the Concord of Worlds, a vast alliance of planets working together to maintain peace across the galaxy. At first, humanity was thrilled. The idea of being part of something so grand, so far beyond Earth's borders, filled people with hope. But that excitement quickly turned into worry when the Concord asked for help. The Concord was fighting a war-long and brutal conflict against another group of aliens known as the Zetherians. The Zetherians were ruthless, destroying everything. In their path, they didn't care about diplomacy or treaties. They wanted to conquer. The Concord desperately needed more soldiers, more ships, and more resources to stop them. And now, they were asking Earth to join the fight. This request landed on the desks of world leaders who gathered in Geneva to decide what to do. Among those present was Daniel Carter, a diplomat known for his calm demeanor and sharp mind. He believed in making decisions based on facts, not emotions. Sitting next to him was Lavra Bennett, a scientist who specialized in advanced technology. She spent her career studying how humans could adapt to life beyond Earth. Both Daniel and Lavra knew this decision would change everything for better or worse. The room buzzed with tension as representatives from different countries debated. Some argued that Earth should join the Concord immediately. If we don't help, the Zetherians will destroy us too, said one speaker, slamming his fist on the table. Others disagreed, saying Earth wasn't ready. We can barely keep our own planet in order, another voice countered. How can we fight someone else's war? Daniel listened carefully, weighing every argument. Finally, he stood up to speak. His voice was steady but firm. Ladies and gentlemen, let's be honest with ourselves. We are not prepared for this. Our armies are divided, our economies fragile, and our technology outdated compared to what the Concord uses. If we send troops to fight the Zetherians, we risk losing everything: our people, our resources, even our independence. Lavra nodded in agreement. And think about it, she added. Even if we win, what happens afterward? Will the Concord treat us as equals, or will they see us as pawns to use and discard? We've only just started exploring space. We need time to grow stronger, to learn how to protect ourselves before we take on battles outside our solar system. Her words struck a chord with many in the room. Slowly, the tide began to turn. More and more leaders sided with Daniel and Lavra, agreeing that Earth should stay out of the Galactic War. After days of intense discussion, the decision was made. Earth would decline the Concord's request for aid. News of the decision spread quickly around the globe. Reactions varied. Some people celebrated, relieved that their governments chose peace over war. Others felt uneasy, wondering if Earth had made a mistake by turning its back on the rest of the galaxy. In cafes, schools, and homes, conversations revolved around one question: what happens next? For Daniel, the weight of the decision weighed heavily on his shoulders. He knew it wouldn't be easy to explain to the Concord why Earth refused to help. Still, he believed it was the right choice, at least for now. As he walked through the streets of Geneva after the meeting ended, he couldn't shake the feeling that something big was coming. Something dangerous. Lavra shared his unease. Back in her lab, surrounded by machines and data screens, she stared at images of distant stars. The Zetherians weren't just some abstract threat, they were real, and they were terrifying. She wondered how long it would take for them to notice Earth's refusal to join the fight. Would they leave humanity alone, or would they see Earth as weak and vulnerable? While leaders and scientists grappled with these questions, ordinary people went about their lives unaware of the storm brewing in the cosmos. Sarah Monroe, a schoolteacher living in Chicago, spent her days teaching kids about history and science. She loved her job, especially when her students asked curious questions about space. One afternoon, a boy named Ethan raised his hand during class. "Miss Monroe," he said, "do you think aliens are watching us right now?" Sarah smiled. "Maybe," she replied, "but I doubt they'd be interested in us. We're just one small planet in a huge universe." Little did she know how wrong she was. Far away, In a remote observatory nestled in the mountains of Colorado, Jacob Miller worked late into the night. A young astrophysicist with a passion for discovery, Jacob spent most of his time studying the stars. On this particular evening, he noticed something unusual, a faint signal coming from the edge of the solar system. At first, he thought it might be interference or a glitch in his equipment. But as he analyzed the data, he realized it was something else entirely. Something artificial. Jacob's heart raced as he double-checked his findings. The signal was moving steadily toward Earth. Could it be a ship? Or maybe a probe sent by the Concorde? Whatever it wasn't natural. He knew he had to report it, but who would believe him? Most people dismissed talk of alien invasions as science fiction. Still, Jacob couldn't ignore what he saw. He sent an urgent message to NASA headquarters, hoping someone there would take him seriously. At NASA, Emily Dawson received Jacob's report. As a communications officer tasked with handling extraterrestrial matters, she took her job very seriously. When she read Jacob's findings, her stomach churned. The data matched descriptions of Zetherian technology she'd studied in classified files. If Jacob was right, Earth wasn't safe anymore. Emily tried alerting global authorities, but skepticism overshadowed her warnings. Many dismissed the sighting as debris or natural phenomena. Even when clearer images revealed unmistakable signs of hostile intent, political leaders hesitated to act, fearing panic among the population. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens like Sarah Monroe noticed subtle changes around her: the sudden increase in military drills, news blackouts, and whispers of evacuation plans. Yet no official statement came forward. Humanity remained blissfully unaware of the impending danger. Back in Geneva, Daniel Carter watched the skies with growing dread. He had hoped Earth's decision to stay out of the Galactic War would buy time. Now he wasn't so sure. Somewhere deep inside, he feared the worst was yet to come. The universe. People went back to their routines, working, studying, and dreaming of the future. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. Rumors spread like wildfire about strange signals detected near Pluto's orbit. Some claimed it was debris from an old satellite, while others whispered about alien ships lurking at the edge of the solar system. Most dismissed these stories as wild speculation, but a few paid close attention. Jacob Miller was one of those who couldn't ignore the whispers. A young astrophysicist working at a remote observatory in Colorado, Jacob spent his nights staring at the stars through powerful telescopes. He loved his job, but lately his focus had shifted. The faint signal he detected months ago still haunted him. It hadn't disappeared. Instead, it grew stronger and closer. Every night, Jacob tracked its movement, his heart pounding with each new discovery. The object or objects were definitely artificial. They weren't natural phenomena or stray satellites. Whatever they were heading straight for Earth. One evening, Jacob sat at his desk, surrounded by monitors displaying streams of data. His eyes darted between screens as he cross-referenced calculations and analyzed patterns. The signal was unmistakable now. It wasn't just one object, it was many. Dozens, maybe hundreds of ships moving in formation. Jacob's hands trembled as he typed up a detailed report. He knew he had to share this information, but he also knew how unlikely it was that anyone would believe him. Still, he couldn't stay silent. He sent the report to NASA headquarters, hoping someone there would listen. At NASA, Emily Dawson received Jacob's message late at night. She was used to working odd hours, especially since Earth's contact with the Concorde of Worlds. As a communications officer specializing in extraterrestrial matters, Emily had seen her fair share of strange reports. But this one was different. Jacob's data matched descriptions of Zetherian technology she'd studied in classified files. If what he said was true and everything pointed to it being true, Earth was in grave danger, Emily didn't waste any time. She forwarded Jacob's findings to her superiors and reached out to government officials, urging them to take action. But her warnings fell on deaf ears. Many dismissed the report as a false alarm or a glitch in the system. Others accused Jacob of exaggerating his data to gain attention. Even when Emily presented clear evidence images showing the approaching fleet, leaders hesitated. They feared causing panic among the population. After all, Earth had just declined to join the Galactic War. Admitting that the enemy might be coming for them would shatter the fragile sense of security. People clung to Dot while politicians debated. Behind closed doors, ordinary citizens began noticing changes. Sarah Monroe, a schoolteacher in Chicago, felt something was off. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but subtle signs were everywhere. Military vehicles rumbled through the streets more frequently than usual. News broadcasts were filled with vague updates about potential threats without providing details. Her neighbors whispered about evacuation plans, though no official announcement had been made. Sarah tried to reassure herself that it was nothing serious, but deep down she felt uneasy. David Hayes, a firefighter in New York City, noticed similar things. His station received orders to prepare for emergencies on a scale they'd never encountered before. Supplies poured in extra fuel, medical kits, and even radiation suits. When David asked his captain what was going on, the response was always the same: just a precaution. But David wasn't convinced. Something big was happening, and nobody was telling the truth. Rachel Morgan, a journalist based in London, sensed the growing tension too. She spent her days chasing stories, digging for facts in a sea of misinformation. One evening, while reviewing footage from a protest downtown, she spotted something unusual in the background: a convoy of unmarked trucks heading toward the outskirts of the city. Curious, Rachel followed them. What she found chilled her too. The bone, rows of tanks and armored vehicles hidden in an abandoned warehouse. Rachel knew she had stumbled onto something important. She recorded everything, capturing images and interviews with locals who had seen similar activity. Back at her apartment, she pieced together a story exposing the military buildup. Before publishing, she reached out to sources within the government, hoping to confirm her suspicions. To her surprise, one anonymous contact admitted the truth: Earth was under threat. An alien fleet was approaching, and leaders were scrambling to prepare without alarming the public. Rachel faced a dilemma. Publishing her story would expose the truth, but it could also cause widespread panic. In the end, she decided the world deserved to know. She uploaded her report online, along with video evidence of the military preparations. Within hours, her story went viral. Social media exploded with reactions ranging from fear to anger. People demanded answers, flooding news outlets and government websites with questions. For the first ever time, humanity realized it might not be safe. Despite Rachel's efforts, official statements remained scarce. Governments issued vague reassurances, claiming the situation was under control. Behind the scenes, however, frantic preparations continued. Emergency protocols were activated and evacuation plans were drawn up for major cities. Scientists worked around the clock to develop defenses against the unknown threat. Laura Bennett, the scientist who had argued against joining the Galactic War, found herself at the center of these efforts. Her expertise in advanced technology made her invaluable as teams raced to adapt alien designs into usable weapons. Lavra struggled with guilt. She had believed staying out of the war was the right choice, but now she wondered if Earth's refusal had invited disaster. Late at night, she stared at schematics of Zetherian ships, trying to understand their weaknesses. Each breakthrough brought a mixed nine of hope and dread. Hope that humanity might stand a chance, and dread at the thought of what failure would mean. As the days turned into weeks, the looming threat became impossible to ignore. Observatories around the world confirmed Jacob's initial findings. The alien fleet was real, and it was closing in fast. Panic began to spread, fueled by uncertainty and lack of leadership. Stores were emptied of food and supplies. Families huddled together, unsure whether to flee or stay put. In some places, riots broke out as fear overwhelmed reason. Daniel Carter, the diplomat who had argued against joining the Concorde, watched the chaos unfold with a heavy heart. He had believed Earth needed time to grow stronger before stepping onto the galactic stage. Now, he feared that decision had left humanity vulnerable. Sitting in his office in Geneva, he reviewed intelligence reports detailing the approaching fleet. The numbers were staggering: more ships than anyone had anticipated. Their trajectory suggested they would reach Earth within weeks. Daniel knew there was no turning back. Earth had refused to fight alongside the Concord, and now the Zetherians were coming to punish them. He reached out to representatives from other countries, urging them to unite in defense of the planet. But old rivalries and mistrust made cooperation difficult. Arguments erupted over who should lead, where resources should go, and how to prioritize evacuations. Time was running out, and humanity was divided. In the midst of the turmoil, ordinary people began taking matters into their own hands. Sarah Monroe organized her students and their families, creating a network to share information and resources. David Hayes coordinated with fellow firefighters, preparing for the worst-case scenario. Rachel Morgan continued reporting, using her platform to keep the public informed and hold leaders accountable. And Jacob Miller stayed glued to his telescope, tracking the fleet's every move. The countdown to impact began. Humanity held its breath, waiting to see what the future held. Would Earth rise to meet the challenge, or would it crumble under the weight of its own fears? No one knew for sure, but one thing was certain: the days ahead would test the very essence of what it meant to be human. Orbit struck cities across the globe, reducing towering skyscrapers to rubble and setting oceans ablaze. Millions perished within minutes as chaos erupted everywhere. The attack was swift, merciless, and overwhelming. Humanity had no time to react, no chance to defend itself against such an advanced enemy. In New York City, David Hayes woke to the sound of explosions. His apartment shook violently as the first wave of destruction hit. Grabbing his gear, he rushed outside to find the streets filled with smoke and screams. Fires raged everywhere, and people ran in all directions, trying to escape the inferno. David's training kicked in immediately. He joined other firefighters battling the flames, working tirelessly to rescue survivors trapped under collapsed buildings. The air was thick with ash, and the heat was unbearable, but he refused to give up. Each life saved was a small victory against the devastation. Across the Atlantic, Rachel Morgan witnessed the attack unfold in London. She had been preparing for another day of reporting when the first energy beam struck nearby. Her office building shook violently, sending debris crashing down around her. Clutching her camera, Rachel fled into the streets, capturing footage of the destruction as it unfolded. Buildings crumbled, vehicles exploded, and people cried out in terror. Despite the danger, Rachel kept filming, determined to document the horror for the world to see. Her live broadcast became one of the few sources of truth amidst the chaos, reaching millions of viewers desperate for answers. Meanwhile, Sarah Monroe huddled with her students in the basement of their school in Chicago. When the first explosion rocked the city, she quickly ushered the children to safety, away from windows and falling debris. The basement was dark and cramped, but it offered some protection from the blasts above. Sarah tried to keep the kids calm, telling stories and singing songs to distract them from the fear outside. But even she couldn't ignore the distant booms and the acrid smell of smoke seeping through cracks in the walls. As hours passed, her thoughts turned to her family. Were they safe? Had they found shelter? Jacob Miller watched the attack from his observatory in Colorado. The once clear night sky was now filled with streaks of fire and smoke. His heart sank as he realized the scale of the devastation. The Zetherians weren't just targeting military sites. They were striking indiscriminately, destroying everything in their path. Jacob felt powerless, unable to do anything but watch as the planet he loved burned. Then a thought struck him. If he could track the fleet's movements, maybe he could help predict where the next strike would occur. Fueled by determination, he returned to his monitors. Analyzing data with feverish intensity. At NASA headquarters, Emily Dawson worked frantically to coordinate Earth's response. Communication lines buzzed with frantic calls from governments and emergency services. Reports poured in from every corner of the globe, painting a grim picture of the attack's scope. Emily knew humanity needed more than scattered efforts. It needed leadership. She reached out to Lavra Bennett, whose team had been developing defensive technologies based on captured Zetherian designs. Together, they devised a plan to deploy experimental shields in key locations, buying precious time for evacuation and counterattacks. Lavra worked tirelessly alongside her team, assembling makeshift defenses from salvaged alien tech. Her hands trembled as she connected wires and calibrated systems, knowing that failure meant certain death for countless people. Despite the pressure, she remained focused, driven by the hope that her work could make a difference. When the first shield generator powered up, creating a shimmering barrier over a crowded shelter, Lavra allowed herself a brief moment of relief. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As the initial shock subsided, fragmented resistance groups began forming. Survivors banded together, using whatever tools they could find to fight back. In Los Angeles, a group of engineers converted old drones into reconnaissance devices, scouting Zetherian positions and relaying information to local militias. In Tokyo, civilians armed with scavenged weapons set up barricades to protect their neighborhoods. Even in the smallest towns, people came together, united by a shared determination to survive. Governments, finally forced into action, scrambled to mobilize what little defense forces they had. Military units launched desperate counterattacks, targeting Zetherian ships with outdated missiles and fighter jets. Though their efforts were largely ineffective, they inspired hope among the population. People saw soldiers risking their lives to defend them and felt a renewed sense of purpose. The message was clear: humanity wouldn't go down without a fight. Daniel Carter, who had argued so strongly against joining the Galactic War, found himself thrust into a leadership role. He traveled between nations, urging cooperation and coordination. In the face of annihilation, we are stronger together, he told skeptical leaders. If we stand divided, we will fall. But if we unite, we have a chance. Slowly, his words began to resonate. Agreements were forged, resources pooled, and strategies aligned. For the first time in history, Earth's diverse populations worked as one toward a common goal: survival amid the destruction. Acts of courage and compassion shone brightly. A young boy in Rio de Janeiro risked his life to pull strangers from burning wreckage. A doctor in Sydney operated on wounded patients by flashlight, refusing to leave her post despite the danger. And in Paris, a group of artists painted murals on ruined walls, turning scenes of despair into symbols of resilience. These moments reminded humanity of its capacity for strength and kindness, even in the darkest times, but the battle was far from over. The Zetherians showed no signs of relenting. Their ships continued to rain destruction upon Earth, targeting shelters, hospitals, and food supplies. Casualties mounted and morale wavered. Some began to lose hope, convinced that resistance was futile. Others clung to the belief that humanity could prevail. No matter how slim the odds, Rachel Morgan saw both sides of this struggle in her travels. She interviewed survivors, capturing their stories of loss and defiance. One man, a farmer from Kansas, told her about losing his entire family in the initial attack. Yet instead of giving up, he joined a local militia, vowing to protect others from suffering the same fate. Another woman, a teacher from Mumbai, described how her community came together to care for displaced families, sharing what little they had. These stories gave Rachel hope, reminding her of humanity's enduring spirit. Back at her lab, Lavra Bennett pushed herself to the limit, refining her designs and creating new tools to aid the fight. She collaborated with Jacob Miller, whose tracking data proved invaluable in predicting Zetherian movements. Together, they developed a rudimentary early warning system, alerting cities to incoming attack seconds before impact. Though it wasn't perfect, it saved countless lives. As the days turned into weeks, humanity adapted. Civilians learned to operate alien weapons, pilots mastered flying repurposed spacecraft, and scientists unlocked secrets hidden in captured technology. The tide began to shift ever so slightly. Small victories emerged: a downed Zetherian ship here, a successful evacuation there. Hope flickered like a candle in the wind, fragile but persistent, yet the cost of the war weighed heavily on everyone. Cities lay in ruins, and billions mourned lost loved ones. The scars of the attack would last for generations. But through the pain and loss, something remarkable emerged: unity. No longer divided by borders or ideologies, humanity stood shoulder to shoulder. Determined to reclaim its future, Daniel Carter looked up at the night sky, now filled with smoke and fire, and felt a glimmer of optimism. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but he believed humanity could endure. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this was just the beginning. Light in a storm. These ships belonged to Commander Elias Drake, a battle-hardened veteran who had fought countless wars against the Zetherians. Despite Earth's earlier refusal to join the Galactic Alliance, the Concord refused to abandon humanity entirely. They saw potential in this young, stubborn species, a spark worth protecting, and sent aid to help turn the tide. Commander Drake wasted no time. He landed his flagship near Geneva, where Daniel Carter and other world leaders had gathered to coordinate Earth's defense. The sight of the alien commander stepping out of his ship sent shockwaves through the crowd. Standing tall with armor that shimmered faintly under the sun, Drake radiated authority. His voice was calm but firm as he addressed the assembled leaders. "We cannot fight your battles for you," he said, "but we can teach you how to fight. Together we might stand a chance." Daniel listened intently, his mind racing. The Concord's offer came with conditions. Earth would need to fully commit to joining the Alliance moving forward. No more neutrality, no more hesitation. Humanity had to prove it was willing to contribute to sacrifice for the greater good. Though the terms were steep, Daniel knew they had no choice. With the Zetherians continuing their relentless assault, Earth needed all the help it could get. He agreed to work alongside Commander Drake, coordinating efforts to mount a counterattack. Lavra Bennett welcomed the Concord's arrival with cautious optimism. Her team quickly partnered with Drake's engineers, sharing what they had learned from reverse engineering Zetherian tech. Together, they refined Earth's defenses, creating stronger shields and more effective weapons. Lavra marveled at the Concord's advanced knowledge, realizing just how far humanity still had to go. Yet she also took pride in seeing her own contributions make a difference. Every breakthrough brought renewed determination to protect her. Planet. As preparations intensified, ordinary citizens joined the fight in unprecedented numbers. Sarah Monroe, the schoolteacher from Chicago, found herself volunteering at a training camp for civilian militias. Alongside teachers, farmers, and office workers, she learned how to operate alien rifles and pilot repurposed drones. It felt surreal. Just weeks ago, she had been teaching kids about history. Now she was preparing to defend her home. Despite the fear gnawing at her stomach, Sarah refused to back down. She reminded herself of the children depending on her, the same ones she had sheltered during the initial attack. Jacob Miller, the astrophysicist whose early warnings had gone largely ignored, became an invaluable asset. His tracking data helped predict Zetherian movements, allowing Earth's forces to anticipate attacks and plan ambushes. Working closely with LeVar, Jacob developed a system to jam Zetherian communications, giving human fighters a crucial edge. For the first time, he felt like he was making a real impact, not just observing the stars, but shaping the fate of his species. Rachel Morgan continued documenting the war, following soldiers and civilians alike as they fought for survival. She embedded herself with a group of pilots flying modified fighter jets armed with hybrid weaponry. These pilots, many of whom had never left Earth's atmosphere before, faced overwhelming odds against the Zetherian superior ships. Rachel watched in awe as they dodged enemy fire with reckless determination, pushing their machines to the limit. Her reports highlighted their bravery, inspiring others to join the cause. The turning point came when Commander Drake proposed a daring plan, a direct assault on the Zetherian flagship hovering above Paris. This massive vessel served as the command center for the entire fleet, coordinating attacks and deploying reinforcements. If Earth's forces could disable it, they might cripple the invasion. The plan was risky. It required precision. timing and flawless execution, but it offered the best chance for victory. Daniel Carter played a key role in organizing the operation. He worked tirelessly with Drake and military leaders to ensure every detail was accounted for. Supplies were gathered, troops were briefed, and evacuation plans were put in place for civilians living near the target zone. Laura's experimental shield generators were deployed to protect critical locations, while Jacob's jamming systems disrupted Zetherian sensors. Everyone understood the stakes. Failure meant certain doom. On the day of the attack, tension hung thick in the air. Pilots like Rachel Morgan climbed into their cockpits, gripping controls tightly as engines roared to life. Ground forces, including David Hayes and Sarah Monroe, prepared to defend key positions from retaliatory strikes. Civilians huddled in shelters, praying for success. Above them all loomed the Zetherian flagship, its dark silhouette blocking out the sun. The battle began. With a barrage of missiles launched by Earth's remaining orbital platforms. Though outdated, these weapons drew the attention of Zetherian patrols, creating an opening for the main assault force. Fighter jets streaked across the sky, weaving through enemy fire with incredible agility. Pilots shouted encouragement over comms, urging each other to hold steady. Explosions lit up the horizon as Concorde ships provided covering fire, their advanced weaponry tearing through Zetherian defenses. David Hayes fought fiercely on the ground, leading a team tasked with securing a power plant targeted by Zetherian bombers. Smoke filled the air as explosions rocked the area, but David pressed forward, determined to protect the facility at all costs. His team followed his lead, working together to take down waves of enemy drones. When the final bomber fell from the sky, David allowed himself a brief moment of triumph before turning his focus to the next objective. Sarah Monroe contributed in her own way, using her training to operate anti-aircraft turrets stationed near the front lines. Her hands trembled as she locked onto incoming ships, firing bursts of energy that sent them spiraling toward the ground. Each hit boosted her confidence, reminding her that even someone like her, a teacher with no combat experience, could make a difference. Meanwhile, Rachel Morgan captured footage of the aerial dogfight, her camera shaking as explosions erupted around her. She marveled at the skill and courage displayed by the pilots, knowing their actions would inspire future generations. Her broadcasts reached millions, fueling morale and rallying support for the resistance. At the heart of the operation, Commander Drake led a strike team aboard his flagship, heading straight for the Zetherian command vessel. Accompanied by a mix of Concorde soldiers and Earth's best fighters, he navigated treacherous corridors filled with enemy troops. Laser blasts echoed off metal walls as the team pushed deeper into the ship, inching closer to their goal. Casualties mounted, but the mission remained clear: destroy the flagship's core. Laura Bennett monitored the progress from Earth, her eyes glued to screens displaying live feeds from the battlefield. Her heart raced as she watched the strike. Team breached the final barrier. With seconds to spare, they planted explosives around the core and retreated to safety. Moments later, the flagship exploded in a brilliant flash, sending shockwaves rippling through space. The remaining Zetherian ships faltered, their coordination shattered without the command vessel. One by one, they began retreating, leaving behind smoldering wreckage and a battered but defiant Earth. Cheers erupted among the survivors, though the mood remained somber. The cost of victory had been immense, and the scars of war would linger for decades. As the dust settled, humanity emerged transformed. No longer divided by borders or ideologies, Earth pledged itself to the Concorde, vowing never again to stand idly by in the face of injustice. Daniel Carter looked up at the night sky, now dotted with Concorde patrol vessels, and whispered softly to himself, "This is just the beginning." And somewhere deep within him, he knew that humanity's greatest adventures and challenges still lay ahead. Steel and concrete. Oceans bore the marks of destruction, their waters tainted by debris and ash. Billions mourned the loss of loved ones, parents, Children, friends, and countless others struggled to rebuild lives shattered by the Zetherian attack. The cost of victory had been immense, and the wounds ran deeper than anyone could have imagined, yet, amidst the devastation, there was a sense of hope. Humanity had survived. Against all odds, Earth had stood its ground and fought back not alone, but alongside the Concord of Worlds. That unity, forged in the fires of war, marked a turning point for the human race. For the first time in history, nations put aside their differences and worked together as one. Borders that once divided people now seemed irrelevant. What mattered most was survival and the future. Daniel Carter found himself reflecting on this change as he walked through the streets of Geneva. Once a diplomat focused on pragmatism and caution, he now saw the world differently. He had argued against joining the Galactic War, believing Earth wasn't ready. But now he realized something crucial. Readiness wasn't about perfection or strength, it was about resolve. Humanity hadn't been prepared, but it had risen to the challenge anyway. And in doing so, it had proven itself capable of greatness. Lavra Bennett shared Daniel's sense of awe, though her thoughts were more practical. In her lab, surrounded by half-finished projects and scattered blueprints, she continued refining the technology they had salvaged from the Zetherians. Her work wasn't done. If anything, it had only just begun. Earth needed better defenses, stronger ships, and more advanced tools to ensure it would never be caught off guard again. Lavra poured every ounce of energy into these efforts, driven by both guilt and determination. She wanted to make sure no one else would suffer as they had during the invasion. Sarah Monroe returned to teaching, though her classroom looked very different now. Many of her students had lost family members or homes, and some carried visible scars from the war. Despite the hardships, Sarah found joy in helping them heal. She taught lessons not just about math and science, but also about resilience and courage. "We're still here," she told her class one day. "And that means we can build something new, something better." Her words inspired smiles, even laughter, filling the room with a warmth that hadn't been there before. David Hayes spent his days clearing rubble and rebuilding neighborhoods in New York City. The firefighter who had risked everything to save lives during the attack now dedicated himself to restoring what had been lost. It was hard, grueling work, but David didn't mind. Every brick laid, every home repaired, felt like a step toward a brighter tomorrow. He often thought about the people he had saved and those he hadn't been able to reach, but he refused to let grief consume him. Instead, he focused on the living, knowing they deserved a chance to thrive. Rachel Morgan documented the recovery process, traveling across the globe to capture stories of survival and renewal. She visited farms where crops were beginning to grow again, towns where families rebuilt their homes brick by brick, and schools where children laughed despite everything they had endured. Her reports painted a picture of humanity's indomitable spirit, showing the world that even in the face of unimaginable loss, people could find ways to move forward. Rachel's broadcasts became a source of inspiration, reminding viewers that healing was possible even after tragedy. Jacob Miller stayed at his observatory, watching the stars with renewed purpose. The young astrophysicist who had once doubted whether anyone would believe his warnings now felt a deep connection to the cosmos. He understood that Earth wasn't alone anymore. Its fate was tied to the rest of the galaxy, for better or worse. Jacob continued tracking activity beyond the solar system, determined to spot any threats before they reached Earth. His work gave him a sense of responsibility and pride that he had never felt before. Commander Elias Drake remained on Earth for several months after the battle, overseeing the integration of human forces into the Concord of Worlds. Though his presence intimidated some, most came to respect him deeply. He saw potential in humanity, a raw, untamed energy that reminded him of his own species when it had first joined the Alliance centuries ago. Before departing, Drake addressed a gathering of Earth's leaders and citizens. "You have earned your place among the stars," he said. "But remember, being part of the Concord is not just about fighting wars. It's about building bridges, sharing knowledge, and standing together against injustice. Your journey is just beginning." His words resonated with everyone who heard them. Humanity had taken its first steps onto the galactic stage, and while the path ahead wouldn't be easy, there was excitement in the unknown. For too long, Earth had been isolated, unaware of the vastness beyond its borders. Now it had allies and enemies to contend with. The lessons learned during the Zetherian invasion would guide humanity as it navigated this new era. Lavra Bennett played a key role in shaping Earth's future within the Concord. Alongside her team, she helped establish research facilities dedicated to studying alien technology and developing innovations tailored to Earth's needs. These centers became hubs of collaboration, bringing together scientists from around the globe. Lavra marveled at how quickly humanity adapted to working with alien designs, realizing that curiosity and creativity were universal traits. Each breakthrough brought her closer to fulfilling a dream she hadn't dared to imagine before, ensuring Earth could defend itself and contribute to the Concord's mission. As weeks turned into months, Earth began to change in subtle yet profound ways. Cities rose again, blending modern architecture with remnants of the past. Schools incorporated lessons about the Concord and the importance of unity. Families gathered to watch launches of newly built spacecraft, marveling at how far humanity had come. Even festivals took on new meaning, celebrating not just Earth's cultures but also its place in the galaxy. Daniel Carter watched these changes unfold with quiet satisfaction. He knew challenges lay ahead. There would be disagreements within the Concord, rivalries among planets, and perhaps even new conflicts with other hostile species. But he also knew humanity was stronger now than it had ever been. It had faced its darkest hour and emerged victorious not because of superior weapons or technology, but because of its ability to unite and persevere. One evening, Daniel stood outside, gazing up at the night sky. Stars twinkled above him, their light traveling unimaginable distances to reach Earth. Among them were Concord patrol vessels, silent guardians watching over humanity's fragile world. Daniel smiled faintly, feeling a mix of pride and humility. Earth had declined to join the Galactic War once, fearing it wasn't ready. Now it stood shoulder to shoulder with the Concord, ready to face whatever came next. Somewhere deep inside, Daniel believed this was just the beginning. Humanity had proven it could endure hardship and rise above it. The road ahead would test its strength, wisdom, and compassion, but those qualities were exactly what made humans unique. As he turned to head back inside, Daniel whispered softly to himself, "We'll be okay." And for the first time in a long time, he truly believed it.